Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everybody. There are some things in life that we just kind of take for granted, especially when you're walking through the village or the town where you live, you're driving on roadways. Things that we take for granted would be how that all comes together, how that's planned. We're going to talk with a gentleman today, continue our conversation with a retired urban and regional planner at the University of Pittsburgh. He's our Centurion recipient. He's Richard Golden Bickel Jr. He's back with us. Hi, Richard. How you doing?
Okay, fine. Thank you.
And today we're going to go a little bit deeper into the education involved in becoming a regional planner. By the way, you can reach us anytime at 631-438-1576 or instantfeedbacksteve@gmail.com. Even before we begin, last time we got together, you were taking a little bit of a vacation type journey that you do every year, traveling from Pennsylvania up to Rhode Island and through Long Island. How did that whole journey go a couple of weeks ago?
Went very well overall. I went to Newport, Nantucket, and Sag Harbor, where I usually go. Had some directional issues, which is surprising. You go to a place so many times and you can still get lost.
I love the way you put that, and I'm gonna file that away in my mind when I need it. Directional issues.
Getting lost is a more accurate description.
Certainly, but it just sounds better. Directional issues. It takes the blame off of everyone. I want, through the eyes of what you do as an urban planner, making that journey, what are some of the things that were going through your mind in terms of maybe traffic flow, the way some of these municipalities are set up? Did anything resonate with you during that trip?
Well, when you go from Ardmore, Pennsylvania, near Philadelphia, to the Cross Sound Ferry at Orient Point, you're going to go through some of the most heavily traveled areas in the country, because you've got the I-95 New Jersey Turnpike corridor, you've got the Long Island Expressway, and some of the parkways that were created years ago, and it's a journey of episodes.
What would you say out of that entire journey? And we're just using that as an example today, but the different states that you went through. Certainly Rhode Island, Long Island, New York, Pennsylvania. I'm not playing any favorites here, but what state do you think has their act together when it comes to a lot of this urban planning?
Well, I could get in a lot of trouble if I said what I really felt, but I think all of the state departments of transportation try their best to keep traffic flowing, to respond to storms and other things that occur, and deal with accidents, and they work with their local and county officials to make sure that everything is coordinated. I think all of them do a great job.
You know, it's interesting here on Long Island where I am. Coincidentally, you drove through Long Island and took the ferry up north. They just, for the Long Island Railroad, at one of the stations, created this huge hub, and there's apartments around the hub. By the train station. It's Ronkonkoma train station, by the way. But they also included restaurants within. There's a brewery in there, a couple of stores. They really, I feel, maximize that space. Not the most attractive area near the train station, but they really kicked it up. I don't know what went on behind the scenes in terms of planning that, but things like that, taking an area that's sizable but not huge and maximizing the space, is that a lot of what's going on within urban planning nowadays?
Yeah, the concept of transit-oriented development, in other words, putting mixed uses near rail or transit stations, is a topic that's been really hot for the last 10 to 15 years, and it's good to see that it's growing in different parts of the country, and I think it's been a contributor to economic development in the local communities or revitalization for older places that needed an uplift.
I'm going to go to an email that we have, and this is from Kelly in Ocala, Florida. And she says, somebody has told me that a Master of Science degree is important in urban planning. What are your thoughts?
Well, the usual stepping stone to urban planning is an undergraduate degree in a related topic like sociology or geography. But once you decide to be a planner, you look for an accredited planning program at the master's level, or in some cases at the undergraduate level, and start on a course of study that gives you the ingredients to become a planner. I
would, now that I've talked with you a number of times, I would imagine, because there's a lot of psychology that goes into this in terms of what the feeling is going to be, what are on people's minds in terms of traffic flow and things like that. Would you say that even psychology or something connected to the mind would also be impactful?
Yes, because the new ideas like that big transit development project in Ronkonkoma are threatening to the existing residents and businesses sometimes. And then you get the dreaded NIMBY, not in my backyard, where lots of people turn out at public hearings and oppose what otherwise would be viewed as a very positive development for the community. And planners are often caught in the middle because they do the studies, they make the recommendations that the local officials eventually adopt, and the public doesn't always like it.
If you look back on your career, would there have been an area of study that you might have said, you know what, I probably should have taken a class in that?
Oh yes. Well, as you know, I started in pre-med.
Yep.
With a biology major, thinking I would be a doctor. And after taking organic chemistry, I said, I'm not going to be a doctor.
I'm right there. By the way, Richard, I'm right there with you. I have friends that in high school even college, excelled in all of that. And there no way I could even come close to that. I just know. We know what we're capable of.
Right. Well, I fished around for a new career and took an urban geography course as a junior at the University of Pittsburgh. And the professor was a teacher in the planning school at the graduate level. So I got interested in urban geography and the field of planning and stayed at Pitt and got my master's degree. So I think that's one path. The other issue, if you're unsure of what your career is, try to take a couple of what I would call survey courses, where it's a broader agenda of environmental things or resources or urban concepts, and not just pick a specialized course right off the bat.
I want to pivot over, and we're going to take another call and another question in a moment, but affordable housing. Now, we've skimmed over that in the past, and that hub that I mentioned at the Ronkonkoma, Long Island train station, the apartments, I checked into it, was kind of curious. They are competitive. We'll call it that. Nothing, and it's brand new, so you get that kind of wow effect. But what can be done about making things affordable in terms of housing right now? It's almost as if people can't afford homes because record high prices in many areas, the interest rate is what it is, that you're forced to rent. And there was actually a story in the newspaper today that many families are waiting. They're riding it out until things change. But that being said, it's all of these places that offer apartments. They know they got you. So what is the answer, or is there one?
Well, one issue is is supply. The supply of affordable units is just not there. So you have lots of people pursuing a homeowner's dream, and yet they're dealing with a tight housing market, higher mortgage rates, and other impediments to getting what they want and need. That I saw an article, I guess maybe it's the same article, that affordable housing is one of the number one issues in New York State.
Yeah.
And that everybody's trying to deal with it, but it starts with affordability related to mortgage rates and loans and other things that people don't necessarily see, but they're definitely the behind the scenes. The issue of development often gets contentious because people, as I mentioned, don't want major change in their backyard, and that's almost a secondary unit. The thing that gets less publicity to the average person, I think, is the affordability concept of getting a mortgage and starting on that road of repayment. And people are stymied; they can't do it because the rates are so high for their situation, and I think it's getting a little better because the stock market and other things are doing better, but it's a real barrier.
It really is, and it's crushing to know that every month you're sending that payment to somebody to rent, and you have nothing to show for it. Let's go to a call. Hi, can you hear us?
It's Camara Anderson. I was calling out of Australia.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
It's Camara.
Camara from Australia. Wonderful. Welcome. We have Richard here. You have a question?
Yes, I was wondering what courses would I take, right, for hurricane preparedness. Like if there's a huge storm that would come, because we've had that, and what college courses would be good for them?
I think one would be a survey course on natural features and the kinds of events that occur that can affect the environment and local communities, and that the storms we've had in Florida and other places really bring home a message that you've got to be vigilant all the time. You can't just sit back and say, well, the storms are occurring somewhere else, but now they're occurring in a lot of places that didn't have major storms before. One of my brothers lives in Hickory, North Carolina, which I view as a hilly place, and yet he had several feet of water in his house, and power outage in the community, and a lot of problems.
Is there, Richard? Are there specific areas of study or classes if you want to make sure that you're prepared in terms of planning for hurricanes and things like that? Is there something that stands out that you would suggest?
I think the concept of emergency preparedness would be important. I don't know if they actually have a course called that, but fighting storms or the results of storms is a complex problem that involves coordination at the local, county, and regional level with the support from the state and federal government. And if you don't work together, you're not going to be successful. And that's in planning in general. You've got to work on cooperative approaches and not just have somebody doing everything, because it's impossible to do that. You've got to involve other skills and have a coordinated effort working with the local officials.
I have to think that things are radically different in a place like we take a look at Australia, or is urban planning still urban planning, no matter where you are? What do you think, Richard?
Well, there are a couple of major cities in Australia, but the image of Australia is the outback, and nothing much is happening. But I think there is a lot. There were two TV shows that opened my eyes. One was called McLeod's Daughters, which was very popular in Australia, and the other is another one called The Royal Doctors Flying Service, which talked about these outlying communities that can only be reached in a rapid time in airplanes.
Wow.
They can't just call up an ambulance and say, "Come on over." They've got to get there.
Wow.
So the Australian TV shows were fascinating.
So you're saying those areas are only reachable by plane?
Well, if you want to get somebody in an emergency situation.
Right. Gotcha. Camilla, any other questions for Richard today?
No, that was actually very insightful, especially the cooperative planning. That is something that is important information, and I never looked at it that way. But these are things that I'm doing my general studies, and I was looking into. So I applaud you guys. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much for calling, and good luck to you too.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks. Richard, I want to pivot over to transportation. When it comes, it's a big challenge in any municipality, and we're focusing on studies today. Are there areas of study, if you want to make sure that you're fully prepared for planning when it comes to transportation, courses that you might want to consider?
Well, if you have a curriculum that includes a transportation course, that would be very important. Sometimes engineers get into transportation planning, but if you want to learn more about engineering as part of a curriculum that goes directly to planning, there are different ways to do that.
What do you think is next? Now, we don't have a magical crystal ball here, but based on your feeling and trends and things like that, and it could be any subject, any category that we're looking at here. What do you think is next in terms of planning?
The issue of artificial intelligence is permeating at the federal level and the state level, and I'm sure people will try to use it at the local level as well, especially if it's a tool to inform the public about what might happen, sort of scenario planning.
Sure.
But one thing I didn't say about what courses you should take, I didn't take an economics course as an undergraduate. And when I got to graduate school, I realized I was deficient in that. And so I bought a book by a guy named Samuelson titled Economics, and sort of tried to read up on what I missed in school. So I think you should have an open mind, and if you feel you're deficient, try to deal with it. And I even used that book when I started my career. It's important. A book like The Power Broker about Robert Moses is another example. I heard it's 1,200 pages, but that's probably 300 pages of footnotes. But it's still worth hearing about the career of this basically a bureaucrat. Many planners are bureaucrats. But he developed a support network related to the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, and he got a lot done. He was also very close to Governor Rockefeller and others. And so all those parkways that come out of Queens and Brooklyn, they're attributed to him. And they've got pluses and minuses. The bridges are all too low for buses to pass through, and because he was not an advocate of public transit. And at the same time, there are wonderful drives and I was on them this past week, because you're not just driving in a straight line like the Long Island Expressway. You're going through these curvilinear streets or highways that give you a feel of the countryside as well as urban areas.
I never even thought about that or considered that in those different things to focus on, especially when it comes to picking, the right courses. Wow. When you're traveling, and you did just recently get back, is that on your mind? Like instinctively, you don't even know you're doing it. Is that something that is a part of you because that's your life's work? And would it always be that way for you?
Yes, because you notice things that maybe before you didn't notice
Right.
about how communities work, how somebody gets to a job, where the jobs are, that kind of thing. And the other coursework that I think is important is demographics. When you go into an area and you start doing a plan, the fundamental starting point is what's the population and employment levels in that community and in the area around it, because jobs and people are at the root of a lot of plans that are developed.
It's a big responsibility when you consider that the plans that are being made are going to live on for decades, right?
Yeah, well, some of them live on the shelf, but others are used.
Well, okay, good point. I'm saying the ones that have been implemented and, good or bad, whether there's issues with them or not, they've been placed and they're going to be there for quite some time. Look at Robert Moses. We're talking about him many, many, many decades. I mean, how many years? 60 years later, we're talking about that. And you've mentioned him before, but I got to honestly tell you, I am going to look into that book because I live in that area, so I'm kind of curious. What?
Yeah, the author is Robert Caro. It won the Pulitzer Prize, and it's literally 1,200 pages.
Wow!
But it is in a paperback edition.
I never knew it won a Pulitzer Prize. Had no idea. Amazing. Yeah. Wow. But there you go. There are things that he enacted with development and such, and it's still here. I'm on that. I was on that parkway. What day was it? Saturday. I was on that parkway Saturday. But ever since you mentioned it, I never looked deeper into it. What he was planning, what he was doing. Now, honestly, I tell people, hey, guess what? That bridge is low for a reason. That road curves around. It's a reason. He had I guess we'll call it an agenda. Agenda with what he did. Wonderful having you on here again today. Learn so much. And I want to throw out there, if you or maybe somebody is a student or planning to study urban and or regional planning, if you ever have any questions, instant feedback, steve@gmail.com. We'd love to get you on here with Richard. Thanks again for being here. Congratulations on our Centurion Award. And Richard, looking forward next time we get together.
All right, Stephen. I hope your health stays good.
It's all good. Just a little laryngitis, but I'm back at it. It's all good. All right. Same to you, and we'll talk soon, okay?
All right. Thank you.
We'll be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! It's now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend?
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.